Hello everyone. Today we are going to be looking at the role of women during World War II. Now you need to listen carefully because along with this video you have got a reading comprehension worksheet to fill in, and at the end of it you have an activity you need to complete about a job you may have during the war. So let's get started. I would like you to think about what jobs women might have had before World War II started. I would like you to think about what life may have been like for men and women, and what the differences between men and women may have been. So what kind of jobs women were doing and what kind of jobs men were doing, and to think in general how they went away about everyday life and what life was like for them. Let's talk about women's role in particular. So before the war, women basically did the easy jobs. So they were either a shop assistant or they did things that men didn't do, and women were expected to stay at home. They were expected to cook and clean, take care of the family, and just basically do the stereotypical women's jobs that these days doesn't apply. And a woman these days is not expected to stay at home and do the cooking and the cleaning and take care of the family. So we are looking at the roles of the women during the war. So we must remember that the war started on the 1st of September 1939 and it ended on the 2nd of September 1945. This meant that the war lasted a whole 6 years. That is a long time for a country to be at war, and we are looking at Britain in particular. So in this lesson you are going to be learning about women's wartime jobs and what their jobs entailed. As you can imagine, life for women before World War II was very different to life as we know it today, and most women were expected to stay at home, look after the family, cook, clean, do the sewing, and all the usual women jobs that you can think of. But these days it's a very different story. So let's have a look and find out a bit more. Younger women did go to work before the war. However, if they got married, they would usually have to give up their jobs and stay at home to look after the family. Women were paid less than men, and generally they were expected to just do the simple women's jobs. So in this lesson you are going to be learning about women's wartime jobs and what their jobs entailed. Younger women did go to work before the war. However, if they got married, they would usually have to give up their jobs and stay at home to look after the family. Women were paid less than men, and generally they were expected to just do the simple women's jobs. And these jobs could have been anything from being a nurse or being a shop assistant. So simple jobs that didn't entail much work or didn't entail craftsmanship, easy jobs that women were expected to do. And as a matter of fact, boys and girls were brought up differently. At school, a girl would learn the basic sewing, cooking, easy jobs, whereas men would be learning about craftsmanship, they would be learning about projects, they would be learning about carpentry. So while the girls are at school learning the cooking and the cleaning and how to take care of a family, the boys were at school learning more skilled jobs in order for them to develop a good career. It sounds really unfair, doesn't it? But imagine how the women felt back then. It wasn't fair. So how do you think they were feeling about men being the only people that could actually go out, get a good job, have a good salary, and bring home money in order to take care of the family? Women, they never had this choice. They were doing the simple jobs, or most of them, if they had families and they were married, they couldn't work. So it was all down to the men to make sure that the men came home with a good pay packet, with a good salary, and took care of the family in the sense that they were able to provide them with money. Therefore, earning money for the family was the men's main role during that time before World War II. However, today we are looking at women. So let's look more specifically at the women. So when the war started in 1939, the role of women changed significantly to how their life was before the war started. Now, I want you to think why their roles changed and what was different, and what do you think now was required of the women? What did the women have to do now that they were not doing before? Well, you have to think about the fact that men were being called up to the army, weren't they? So what was missing? What did the women have to do now that they were not doing? Because as I mentioned, men were called up for active service. They were called up to go and fight, to be on the front line. They were called up to fight for their country and be the heroes. And there was a great need that the women took over their jobs. And so they were taking the jobs that the men had previously done. And then suddenly, women became more than just homemakers. They were not just cooking and cleaning and sewing and taking care of the family, but they were given the opportunity to be the heroes of the country. They would contribute immensely. They contributed hugely to the war effort, and this was in many different ways. At the start of the war, the government relied on women to volunteer for work. So the government wanted women to work, but they were not getting paid. However, by late 1941, it became necessary to introduce conscription. Now, this means making work compulsory. You have no choice but to work. And then initially, this only applied to single women, and it was single women between the ages of 20 and 30 years old. But later in the war, this changed, and it was extended to women between the ages of 18 to 50. So they would start working younger and they would finish working older. And then in 1943, almost 90% of single women were working. However, it was 80% of married women that were also working. You should have by now managed to read through your worksheet that was accompanied with my video and the PowerPoint I've sent you. And you should have been able to answer all the questions until now. Just follow the text on all the slides and the answers are there. Right now, you have an activity to complete. You need to imagine that you are a woman living in World War II and you have just been given a job. You need to read the letter of employment that you have received to see what job you will be doing And then you are allowed to use the internet to research everything that your job might entail. And then once you have done this little bit of research, you are then to fill in your job description activity sheet. Now, there are various headings on this activity sheet, so try and be as inventive and as creative as you can, as I want to know exactly what you have been doing in your job, and describe the details of your job very clearly and carefully. Now, there are 4 letters of employment. You don't have to do them all. You need to choose one letter, the most interesting and exciting to you, and you need to research everything about this job that is on your activity sheet that you should be filling in. Okay? On the job description activity sheet, the instructions are written there and they are clear. But just to go through them again with you, I want you to research more details about your new wartime job. And I want you to fill in the table on the activity sheet describing the different aspects of your new job. And I want you to do it in as much detail as possible. You can use what you already know, so your knowledge, and you can use your imagination, and you can add personal details such as whether or not you think you will enjoy your job. So you haven't started yet. Will you enjoy it? Research where the job might be, the location of the job, how much you might be earning, and your uniform. If you can't find anywhere that says how much you might be earning, then think about the job you are doing and give a realistic number of how much you might be earning per hour or per week. You need to put your working conditions. So are the working conditions clean, dirty, safe, unsafe, not fit for a woman, only fit for a man? Like I said, use your imagination carefully and outline all the details of the job that you have been employed to do. On your offer of employment worksheet, you have got 4 different jobs. You only need to choose one of those jobs. I will read them to you so that we are all clear what they say. So the first one says, "Thank you for volunteering to join the Women's Voluntary Service. I am pleased to confirm that you will be undertaking the running of a mobile canteen in London. You should attend the London WVS Rest Centre next week for training." WVS stands for Women's Voluntary Service. Your duties will include preparing food, promoting the health and well-being of ARP staff, ordering and organising stock, assisting as directed with the safe housing of those affected by bombings. You will be issued with a uniform consisting of a hat and overcoat and should be worn whenever you are on duty. Your hours of work will vary and more details will be communicated when you attend for training. The second job offer says, "Thank you for volunteering to join air raid precautions. I am pleased to confirm that you have now been appointed as an ARP warden in central London. You should attend the Rosendale Street ARP Centre next week for training." Now, ARP stands for Air Raid Precautions. Your duties will include patrolling streets after nightfall to ensure blackout, directing civilians to the nearest air raid shelter in the event of the siren sounding, extinguishing fires and clearing debris. You will be issued with a metal hat and armband that should be worn whenever you are on duty. You will be expected to work 3 nights a week, and in the case of any emergencies that may arise. And then you've got the third job offer. Thank you for volunteering as a munitions factory worker. I am pleased to confirm your appointment at Elstow Ordnance Factory, where you should attend next week for training. Your duties at the factory will include filling shells, repairing machinery, working on the production line. You will be issued with protective clothing on arrival that must be worn at all times. You will receive 1 day off per week. I look forward to seeing you next week. And your final job offer is: thank you for volunteering to join the Women's Land Army. I am pleased to confirm your appointment at Cherry Hill Farm, working under Mr. William Jollander. You should attend the farm next week for training, after which you will be shown your accommodation. Your duties at the factory will include milking the cows, planting and growing crops, driving a harvester. You will be issued with a uniform consisting of brown dungarees, hat and overcoat, the wearing of which is at the discretion of the farmer. You will be housed in a hostel in the nearby village of Willingham with 16 other girls. You will receive £1.85 per week from Mr. Jollander, and in return you will be expected to complete 50 hours of work per week in this time. So remember, that was 4 job offers I have just read to you, and you only need to choose one and fill in the activity sheet with all the information you can find. If there is anything on the job information sheet that you do not understand, you are allowed to look it up on the internet and research what they may mean. Okay. That was all for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you all next lesson. Bye.